Hello everyone and welcome to another very nice game from the final round of the isleofmanchess.com tournament, the Swiss one. We have Wang Hao versus David Howell. David Howell won a very nice game against Alexander Grishuk yesterday, and both of them are basically fighting for a spot in the candidates tournament. So without further ado, let's check it out. Wang Hao with the white pieces opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4. We have g6 and now g3, preparing to flank to the light square bishop, bishop to g7 and bishop to g2. Howell goes for d5, the Neo-Gruenfeld defense, something he often enjoys playing. We have c captures on d5, knight captures on d5, and now knight to f3. We have knight back to b6, just going back with the knight. And now comes castles by white. We have knight to c6, putting pressure on the d4 pawn, and now e3, just defending that pawn. We have e5 by Howell, attacking the center, and now comes knight to c3, finally developing the other knight. E captures on d4, knight captures on d4, knight captures on d4, e captures on d4, and now c6. You cannot capture the d4 pawn either with the queen or with the bishop because you run into a lot of trouble. For example, queen captures bishop captures knight b5, puts you in a really terrible position. There's no way to defend both threats if bishop e5, just rook e1, so that's completely winning. And if you're wondering about bishop captures, it's still knight to b5. It's just a very unpleasant move. The bishop is under attack twice. You have to move it. Now captures with check. Once you block it, now again you go after the c7 pawn, and there is not much you can do. Sure, you can save the pawn, but after this check, the king has to go here, and then when the rooks come to the d and e file, it will just be overwhelming for the black king. So that's why you don't capture it. So c6, making this bishop a less useful piece and also preventing d5. But here comes d5. So there you have it. C captures on d5, knight captures on d5, and now black just castles as the black king has been in the center of the board for a bit too long. So castles, and now bishop to e3 by Wang Hao. And here, knight captures on d5 is a known move in the position, but here bishop to e6 is a new move by Howell, and it is most certainly something that he prepared. So it is as of move 14 that we have a completely new game. We have knight captures on b6, a captures on b6, getting a semi-open file for the rook, and now bishop captures on b7. Rook captures on a2, we have rook captures on a2, and the bishop captures on a2. And here queen to a4, saying, okay, I'm gonna attack your bishop, so what do you play here? And it seems like this is the moment where the game really begins. If bishop to e6, the game just continues, everything is perfectly fine, the material on the board is equal, both players have a bishop pair, so anything can happen here. And it's a pretty symmetrical position. The king side the pawn structure is the same. Both players have a b pawn, so really it would be hard to get a more symmetrical position with this many pieces on the board. But we have, instead of bishop to e6, bishop to d5, offering a trade of light square bishops, which makes sense. You want to get rid of white's light square bishop, as all of the light square weaknesses will then be felt, but it runs into a very unpleasant move. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this very unpleasant move. Well, I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, as it is a very unpleasant move. It's rook to d1. For those of you who just want to enjoy the show. Now, I haven't seen the interview after the game, as I don't know if Howell overlooked this or did he decide to do it, but I think it was a blunder. Otherwise, it was really just a crazy idea, because here he has no moves. The bishop will follow you. There's no way to defend the bishop. So here, bishop captures on b7. Howell sacrifices the queen. We have rook captures on d8, rook captures on d8, and now, okay, he has a rook and the light square bishop for the queen. It's not the end of the world, especially since you still have the bishop pair. We have f4 by white, now making an additional safety square for your king, and bishop captures on b2, so grabbing yet another pawn. So if you could get your bishop back to g7, somehow get this bishop over to e6 and start pushing your passed pawn, then this is anyone's game. But of course, Wang Hao will have his say about that. Queen to e7, attacking the bishop and the pawn on b6 with rook to d7, and now queen captures on b6, also attacking the bishop here. So without wasting any time, not allowing Howell to consolidate, with bishop to a1, and now comes queen to b5, again putting pressure on the rook here, and also the rook has to keep an eye on the bishop on d7. So the strongest idea for Howell here is bishop to c8. This would be the most resilient. Now prepare the bishop to reach some light squares here, and you can always go for rook to d1 check. But Howell went for rook to d1 check immediately. We have king to f2 and now bishop to h1, getting the bishop to a safe square, as well, the queen has a lot of checks at her disposal, so you never know when you might blunder a piece. So bishop to h1, and sure, it's controlling a lot of squares here around the black king, also white king. Also the rook controls a lot of squares, so it could be unpleasant if Howell gets a few moves in. But queen to e8 check. King to g7 and now bishop to c5, threatening bishop to f8 check. So you have to make some more room for your king. We have h5 and now bishop to f8 check. So what do you do here? Obviously, you don't want to go anywhere to h7 or something like that. You're going to lose the f7 pawn, but no square is a good square here. We have king to f6 by Howell, and now queen to e7 with check. King to f5 and queen captures on f7 with check. So now if king e4, you're just going to capture here with check, king d4, and now queen to c2, and you run into a lot of trouble. The rook is now captured, trapped. There's no good square for the rook. You have to go here and then just check, wins material. Whatever you do, you're just going to lose the bishop, and then it's just game over. So after queen captures on f7, bishop to f6, but now you just attack the pin piece. Bishop to e7 is played, and here Howell was, of course, very disappointed with him, as it was a very important game for him, you know, a chance for a spot at the candidates, and he blundered and had to sacrifice his queen. So he played rook to d2 check. It's still not over. I mean, you still have to make white work for it. Rook captures on h2. Now clearing the g4 square for his king, with queen captures on f6 with check, king to g4, and now queen captures on g6 with check. King to h3 and now f5. Here Van Hao starts to push his passed pawn. We have bishop back to d5, and here comes f6. There's really no good way to prevent the pawn from being pushed. We have king to g2, and now we have queen to c2 check, and it was in this position that David Howell resigned the game. Whatever he does loses the bishop and then just the game. For example, if you go to h3, just queen to f5 check picks up the bishop, and if you don't, if you play king back to g1 or somewhere else on the first rank, just queen d1, again you pick up the bishop on d5, and then it's just very much straightforward. So yeah, after queen to c2 check, David Howell resigned the game, and a really tough break for him, as you just don't expect to play in a Swiss tournament and win a spot at the candidates. That's just insane. But that's exactly what happened to Wang Hao, and now China will have two representatives at the candidates tournament, Ding Liren and Wang Hao, which is great for them. So yeah, the really tough break, this bishop to d5 move. Like I said, if bishop to e6, the game just continues. It can go on forever, and it probably would. But bishop to d5, just a terrible blunder for Howell in such an important game. But like I always say, it's chess. Things happen, and anything can happen when you play chess. So yeah, not only does Wang Hao win a spot and his spot in the candidates tournament, but also he wins the Isle of Man chess tournament, because he has a better rating performance than Fabiano Caruana. So very big accomplishment for him. But I'm pretty sure about this. I'm not 100% sure. So I will probably make another video from one of the nicer games from the Isle of Man chess tournament tomorrow, and then we're gonna check out all of the standings. But as usual, you can check out the standings. I will put a link in the description below, so you can just check them out for yourselves. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I'm very sure Howell didn't, but Wang Hao, on the other hand, congratulations to him. And if you meet Maxime Vachier-Lagrave at the library or the bar, congratulate him. A happy birthday. So I would like to thank Michael Diener for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage. Well, not continuing, but showing at least one more game from the Isle of Man chess tournament, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and we are soon starting our next big saga, so I'm going to have to create some sort of a poll for you guys so you can vote. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.